Some breaking news has just hit the guitar world in the last hour that has the capabilities of changing the guitar market forever. It's the news that Dean have just had a massive victory in their long-standing trademark dispute with Gibson. The court has ruled that there is a full reversal on the ruling from 2022 in which Gibson won against Dean, and now there's going to be a retrial with evidence that they didn't initially let into the court. But before we get into that, let's take a very brief understanding about what this whole fight was about. Back in 2019, Gibson sued Dean. Dean guitars since the 1970s have been making these V and Z shapes. That's what they called them, and it's very clear to see that that's kind of a flying V in an Explorer shape. It's a Dean take on that, but it's still a V in an Explorer. Gibson initiated a lawsuit against Dean's parent company Armadillo Distribution Enterprises, and some of their claims were somewhat understandable, some of them a little bit more far-fetched. When it comes to far-fetched, and I don't think it actually ended up in the final lawsuit, but it was certainly in their initial complaint. They asserted that Dean's use of the word modern, M-O-D-E-R-N, was somehow an infringement on the trademark of their word moderne, M-O-D-E-R-N-E, which is a different word. And even highlighted by the fact that Gibson both have the modern shape, and they also have Gibson Les Paul the modern collection. So they're aware that those are two different words. They sued Dean anyway for that. That seemed a little bit much. But some of the other complaints were a little bit more understandable. Here you can see Gibson's trademarks on the left and what they claim to be Armadillo's infringing trademarks on the right. You've got the V shape. Well, yeah, you can see that those are clearly very similar. The Explorer, yes. We've got the ES335. Then you've got Hummingbird. Dean or Armadillo used the word Hummingbird. That's kind of pretty fair and clean cut. Then here's the modern versus modern. That's a different word, Gibson. But very clearly, the Vs, the Explorers, the 335 shapes, these are similar shapes. But the difference in this case was that Dean had been making these for a very long time, at least the V and the Z shape, the V and the Explorer shape. They'd been making that since the 70s. And the way trademarks work is that if you don't defend them, you don't really get to keep them. That's why kind of doesn't make sense for people to get angry at companies when they defend their trademarks by issuing cease and desists. Normally people say, oh, it's bullying when a bigger company does that, but it's actually kind of mandatory for them to do that or else they'll lose their trademarks. Now, in the defense of others, Gibson have been known to be fairly heavy-handed when doing this and not always really particularly nice. But it does have to be done in the sense of business. Just people's arguments, and even Armadillo or Dean's argument, is that you kind of should have done that in the 70s, maybe even the 80s, not 2019 like they did in this case. But that's neither here nor there, because in 2022 the court ruled in Gibson's favour. Gibson won, Dean lost. And financially it wasn't the biggest win for Gibson. They walked away with a payout from Armadillo of $4,000. Not exactly the best financial gain, but nonetheless they had a much bigger win, and that was stopping Dean from producing Vs and Explorers. They stopped them dead in their tracks, and that was frankly a very big hit to Dean, because they'd been making them for decades. It was a huge part of their brand, and another part of their brand was artists. If we look at their artist roster now, it's very different from what it used to be. And there's artists, for example, Eric Peterson here, who had both signature V and Z guitars, and they are no longer in production because Dean are not allowed to produce the guitars. They can't make the signature guitars for these artists that use them. And that's been a big hit. Take, for example, a massively famous name who used a Dean V, Michael Schenker. He used Dean Vs for decades, but Dean can't make them anymore. His signature guitars can't be made anymore. That's obviously going to be a hit financially. So he's not playing Dean anymore. I think he's back playing Gibson, or at least not officially, but he's playing them. So the inability to produce some of their most well-known shapes was very clearly going to be a big hit for Dean. They even were found in contempt of court in 2023 for not removing the V and Z shapes. Now, I should mention and stress this is only in the US. In the EU, Gibson have lost the trademark for the Flying V. Any brand can make a Flying V shape and not be an infringement on Gibson's trademark, at least in the EU. Now, selling in the American market, big no-no, but here, they can do it. And that's kind of where this new news could change the guitar market forever. Because if Dean win this, there's a chance, the argument could be made, to nullify Gibson's trademarks, and that would change a lot. So let's take a quick look at Dean's announcement. Dean Guitars attains sweeping win in its appeal against Gibson. Tampa, Florida. Dean Guitars is proud to announce a significant legal victory in its long-standing trademark dispute with Gibson Brands Incorporated. The U.S. Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit Court has ruled in favour of Dean Guitars by granting a full reversal and a new trial, vindicating the company's position that its long-standing use of certain guitar models does not infringe on Gibson's trademarks. The court held that evidence of countless other companies making these guitar models must be allowed to be shown in court. It's very interesting to me that that initially wasn't allowed, because that would be another part of trademarking, proving that, well, is it definitively Gibson? That shape, if you look at that shape, do you think Gibson? I think most guitar players kind of look at the name on the headstock, to be honest, but, you know, trademark law, it's weird. We are incredibly pleased with the court's decision, said Pam Rubinson, CEO of Dean parent company Armadillo Enterprises. This court's ruling affirms our commitment to Dean's legacy V and Z models that have been in continuous production since 1977 and reinforces our beliefs in fair competition within the guitar industry. We have always strived to respect the history of guitar craftsmanship while bringing our own unique flair to the market. This is a complete vindication. We have fought this battle and won on our behalf of Dean Guitars and every other guitar manufacturer in the industry. Ron Beanstalk of Scarinci Hollenbeck LLC, attorney for Armadillo, stated, amongst other issues, the court recognized the history of the Dean brand in their long-standing use of these guitar models, as well as countless other guitar companies that have produced and marketed these same guitars. So that's the huge news. It really is big. If Dean do win this, there is the chance of, like they're saying, it's kind of on behalf of other guitar manufacturers. And it's not the first time that multiple guitar manufacturers have teamed up in court. For example, I can't remember the year. Might have been 90s, maybe early 2000s, something like that. Fender initiated a lawsuit trying to trademark the Strat body and the Tele body, shapes that are used by almost every guitar brand. If they received those trademarks, the guitar world would have changed completely and drastically. Very clearly Fender didn't win, but that's because multiple guitar companies kind of teamed up together and fought this. And if I'm not mistaken, the lawyer that's representing Dean in this case, or Armadillo in this case, is the same lawyer who fought on behalf of those other manufacturers against Fender way back when. So this is very big news. Really big news, or at least it could be. If Dean win this, the guitar market could change drastically. Imagine how many Explorers and Vs you would see from other companies. You know, a PRS Explorer. It could happen if Dean win. So I'm very interested in this. I'll be following it, and I'll let you know if there's any big updates. Probably won't be for a while. As we've seen, this lawsuit started way back in 2019. So we're 5 years on, and there's a retrial happening. So it'll probably be another 5 years by the time anything actually happens or we get an end result. The legal system is a bit slow. But like the video anyway, and maybe subscribe for a video in 5 years about this same topic. Alright, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye!